The Turks are voting today in one of the most consequential elections in modern Turkey's 100-year history. The country is heading for the presidential and parliament elections. The polls will close at 5 p.m. local time today, but the race is between three candidates. Turkey's incumbent president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. However, Erdogan, who has been in power for more than 20 years, now faces his strongest challenge so far. 6 opposition parties have joined forces for the polls, and they have chosen opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu as the unity candidate. While the race is predominantly between these two candidates, right-wing leader Sinan Oğan has also filed his candidature, something that will only cut Erdogan's prospects. Today's vote will decide not only who leads Turkey, a NATO country of 85 million people, but also how it is governed and where the economy is headed amid a deep cost of living crisis and the shape of its foreign policy. The Turkish politicians held their final rallies in the last hours of campaigning on Saturday. Erdogan, who is facing the toughest challenge ever in his 2 decades of power, was speaking at various neighborhoods rallies in Istanbul, where he described the elections as a celebration for Turkey's future.
Çünkü CHP 14 Mayıs seçimlerini ülkemizin geleceğine, milletimizin kazanımlarına, devletimizin hedeflerine sahip çıktığımız bir demokrasi şöleni olarak görüyoruz. Ey Türkiye! Ey İstanbul, ey Ümraniye, bu mücadelede bizimle misin?
Erdogan's campaign of the past month has focused on his government's achievements in the defense industry and infrastructure projects, and also his assertion that the opposition would roll back such developments in Turkey. Erdogan also held evening prayers in Istanbul's iconic Hagia Sophia, hours before presidential and parliamentary elections in the country. Scores of Erdogan supporters also gathered to accompany him during the prayers. During his term, Erdogan had changed the status of the iconic Byzantine-era monument from a museum to a mosque. Meanwhile, Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, also held final rallies in Istanbul and urged people to vote for Kılıçdaroğlu.
Kavgayla, gürültüyle işi olanlara sevgili gençler, yüzünüz gülecek ve üniversiteleriniz özgün 6 liderinin bir araya gelmesinin de.
However, for many voters in Turkey, casting their votes in Sunday's closely contested elections will be an uphill task. The elections are being held at a time when the country is still battling with the effects of the powerful earthquake that killed more than 50,000 people. Erdogan's government has come under intense criticism over how it handled the disaster as well.
Başta milletimiz, devletimiz var olsun. Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımız başta olmak üzere Devlet Bahçeli, Hatay İl Başkanımız Sayın Alihan Döner başta olmak üzere Rabbim hepsinden razı olsun. Bize yerlerini, yuvalarını açtı ve hiç kimseye muhtaç etmedi Allah'ın izniyle. Yani onların emeklerini ne yapsak ödeyemeyiz.
The voter turnout in Turkey is traditionally high, showing continued belief in civic participation. However, if no presidential candidate secures more than 50% of the vote, a runoff will be held on May 28th. For more on this, we're now being joined by Yusuf Erim, who's the editor-at-large at the TRT World, and he's joining us live from Istanbul. Thank you so much for joining us from beyond, Mr. Erim.
Thanks for having me.
Right now, Erdogan has been in power for more than 20 years, and the recent polls suggest that he is trailing behind his opponent. He has also been criticized for handling the earthquake and the economic crisis in the country. In your viewpoint, do you think that it's time for another leader in Turkey?
Well, first of all, both candidates, at least the 2 major candidates, the incumbent Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the opposition alliance candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, offer voters 2 very different paths forward towards the future. Erdogan, a multipolarist, a low interest rate outlook for the Turkish economy, a very forward deployed diplomatic approach to foreign policy, supporting the local defense industry. And when we look at Kılıçdaroğlu, a more Western aligned policy going forward, a very orthodox economic policy that's centered in price stability. So as we can see, both potential leaders have very different policies to offer the voters. So it's not right to say who's better or who's not. That changes from voter to voter and what the voter wants and where the voter sees Turkey in the next 5 to 10 years. And regarding their voter ideology and the voters' opinions, they're going to select the candidate that they feel is best.
Right, Mr. Erdogan, you speak of how the policies of Erdogan and Kılıçdaroğlu are contrasting and different, and you speak of how the voters it'll be on them whether whom they want to vote for. So give us an analysis as to what are the main concerns of the voters in Turkey at the moment.
Okay, well, topping the agenda is the economy. There has been high inflation now for about 2 years. So this has definitely been a concern. There's been surging foreign exchange rates as well. That's been another concern. The Turkish president has opted for an unorthodox low interest rate policy, but his main objective is to be able to grow the Turkish economy. And he feels that low interest rates are spurring credit-driven growth. This is creating more employment, more jobs, more manufacturing, and record level exports for Turkey going forward. And he has a more medium to long-term vision for the economy. Kılıçdaroğlu has a more orthodox monetary policy centered on price stability, higher interest rates. This would obviously help in the short term, but in the long term, it may cost Turkey some growth. So that's how they differ in the economy. And as I said, when it comes to foreign policy, that's another important issue. Migration, a very important issue as well. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu wanting Syrian refugees to return, wanting to normalize with the Assad regime in Syria. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan feeling that it's not time to have repatriation of refugees, that the situation is still dangerous over there, and that there can't be any type of forced return for Syrians. That's another very divisive issue between both candidates as well. And then on the foreign policy, of course, as I stated, Kılıçdaroğlu more Western aligned, Erdogan a more multipolarist, looking more east as well, creating new allies amongst the Eastern Bloc countries over there. And earthquake recovery weighs very heavy on the minds of the Turkish voters going into the ballot today.
Right, Mr. Erdogan, you speak of foreign policies. Let's delve deeper into this. Give us a sense of how the outcome of these elections could impact ties with the EU, Russia, and the West Asia.
Well, the opposition alliance candidate has already said that he plans on jump-starting the EU membership process, that he plans to have a more cordial relationship with the United States and also with NATO as well. So this is something that the West has applauded with Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu's campaign promises. So we can probably see a Turkey that turns more west towards NATO, more west towards the EU, prioritizing the accession process for the European Union. With Erdogan, we're going to probably continue to see multipolarity. We're going to continue to see a balance between East and West. We're going to continue to see forward deployed diplomacy, and whether it be Syria, Iraq, Libya, the Caucasus, Central Asia as well. Also very active in the war in Ukraine, trying to mediate between Russia and Ukraine, also brokering the grain corridor deal. So these are two very different styles when we look at foreign policy, and they offer voters two very different foreign policy paths.
Right, Mr. Erdogan, my last question to you. We'll, of course, have to wait and see what the outcome of these elections are. But in your viewpoint, do you see the presidential elections as the opposition's fight to win? We know a total of 6 opposition parties have come together against Erdogan in the latest polls.
Well, the opposition is a very eclectic grouping. You have a left-wing party, the major opposition, their major partner, a right-wing nationalist party. You have 2 conservative parties grouped in there with them. You have another more liberal conservative party, and you have a center right-wing party. So many different ideologies inside this 6-party coalition. The one thing that brings them all together is their position against the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So it's been a very important balancing act for the opposition alliance candidate. He's been working on this alliance now for almost three and a half years. And he's been successful in being able to craft this alliance to be able to get near 50% of the vote. Obviously, 50% plus 1 vote needed to defeat the Turkish president. And it's been a rocky road throughout the campaign process because there have been some disputes amongst alliance members. But Kılıçdaroğlu has kept it together, and well, in about 12 to 15 hours, we'll probably be seeing a result, seeing if he's successful, or will Turkey re-elect Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan once again.
Right, Mr. Erdem, we'll of course have to wait and see who the Turks vote for in the latest presidential elections. But thank you so much for joining us in WION and sharing your insights with us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.